Studied and taught chemistry in London, where he obtained a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of London. In 1989, he set up Dirk Picture Library. He is also the director of the Chobi Mela, the Festival of Photography in Asia, an amazing photography festival. And he's also the jury member of numerous competitions, including World Press Photo, where he's been a judge on 4 occasions. He was the first Asian chair of the World Press Photo Contest judging panel. Dr. Alam set up the South Asian Media Academy. His recent exhibition, Crossfire, curated by the Peruvian curator Jorge Villacorta, has been widely acclaimed. Next, we have Arif Mahmoud. Please welcome Mr. Mahmoud. Mr. Arif has a bachelor's degree in business administration from Otterbein College, Ohio. He started photography on his return to Karachi in 1985. Areas of his interest being photojournalism, portraiture, and fashion. 5 years later, he was contributing editorial work for all major publications of Pakistan. International publications include Newsweek, Khalij Times, Gulf News, Arabian Women, and private magazines. Mr. Arif Mahmoud has 26 publications to his credit, including limited edition portfolios and books. He has had 14 solo exhibitions in Pakistan and abroad till today, along with 56 group shows in various cities of the country abroad. His photographs are also in the permanent collection of the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston, USA. Okay, next we have Mr. Tapu Javeri. He seems to be a very famous photographer in Pakistan. His focus has been art photography, and he's worked with the country's leading newspapers and magazines for the past decade. His forte has been in the art world, and he has established his penchant for news and adventures. His new photo art is heading off the dynamic new wave of photography that has hit the country. And finally, we have Insia Sayed. She's a fashion and lifestyle writer, marketer, and image consultant. And she has been shooting pictures in the streets of Karachi while driving around with her family. Ms. Sayed's earliest memory of inclination towards photography. For her, photography has been a long, continuous learning experience, first as a pastime and now as a job. One of the country's most successful visual artists, she has been published in esteemed publications such as The Telegraph, Glamour Magazine, Le Monde, Communications Art Magazine, and The Washington Post. Her accolades include photos in 2011 Best Picture of the Year with the addition of Time Lightbox. Earlier in 2013, her work, Unabridged and Unpublished, was published in a book, Kamsukhan, A Collective and Contributions by 8 other female photographers by Marcus. She currently works as a freelance journalist for Thomson Reuters. So welcome. And now we're going to have each photographer present their work for about 5 minutes. First, Dr. Shahid Alam.
I still can't see it here. Can I have it on the front? Otherwise I have to turn back. But while we're doing that, let me go on to why I'm showing you the pictures I'm showing you. Essentially, of course I'm a photographer, but I've entered photography because it works. I'm not married into photography. I have no desire to constantly be a photographer. I will use whatever tool that works at any particular time. And I choose to use photography because it's such a powerful tool. But I want to reiterate that it's not a static tool. It moves, shifts, as media does. And once we have it up there, if it's not going to work, I'll just go there. I'll just turn my head. Not to worry. Get used to me turning around. So let's go on to the first image. Can we have those lights down, or can you see that properly? Is it okay? Yeah, fine. This is 1988. When I started photography, it wasn't so easy for me to get established as a photographer, and I essentially did advertising, fashion, industrial photography. That's what paid for a living. But I was doing my personal work, and I found, as you have, I'm sure, found in this country, a general in charge taking over, and my work was as an activist trying to bring down this general. And some of the early work I did was looking at events such as this, but also comparing it with, actually there's a slight distortion on that screen, but let's ignore that. Those two pictures, early two pictures, were during the floods in '88, and shortly after that, there was this very opulent wedding of a powerful minister. And I juxtaposed these pictures together. This was the basis of my first show in the country, and it got censored. I tried to show it in other ways, but it also taught me a lesson. While it had been very successful, and when we did finally show it, much later, we had something like 400,000 people coming to see the show in about 3 days. But I felt a different strategy was needed. And you heard the mention of Crossfire. I'm not going to talk about that, but at Crossfire, when I was showing work of extrajudicial killing, I started using a much more conceptual approach to work. That show also got censored. The police were sent, riot police closed down our gallery. But we were able to take the government to court because we'd shown the work in a manner which made it much more difficult for them to actually logically turn down that show. But we continued the work, and later on, this work is about the garment industry, which is very close to the fashion industry. So I actually photographed the carcass of the building where the fire had taken place and used it as a billboard, because that's how the fashion industry used photography. And the building at the back is the building of the Owners Association. So we set it up in that juxtaposition, and that's where we set up a performance. But I went on to try and incorporate some of this into a later body of work. What's very interesting is the early photography talks about what photography usually talks about. You show things as they happen. You're there at the right place at the right time. You're a witness. But I think it gets more interesting when you try and talk about photography of things that don't physically exist, when you deal with concepts, when you try and get underneath the scene. And I started working on a body of work on a woman called Kalpana Chakma, who was disappeared by the military on the 12th of June, 1996. And every 12th of June, I've been producing a new body of work. And the next was the first, which I'll show you a little video of that. Is that working? No. So the first work really involved a forensic technique that I used, and I photographed the bark of a tree that this woman had leaned on the last journey she made, and I made a video loop of sections of this bark, which became this track that you see. And what became very interesting is we projected it from the ceiling to the floor, and we gave it a soundtrack of the forest, and it became a very powerful, moving image that people responded to. In the later body of work, I showed parts of her own objects, books in a library. This is about Lenin. She was very influenced by Marxism. This is her own dress, objects in her room, and essentially tried to personalize the work, make it more intimate. But then, and if you have the video of this, I began to take on a very different approach. And in the most recent work, I interviewed the people who championed her work, and I photographed them using a technique that I developed specifically for this work. I borrowed a laser device from the garment industry and did reverse engineering to produce images which were burnt by laser onto grass mats. We don't have an audio here. So this is the grass mat being burned by a laser beam. And then we showed this work in a gallery where we have these straw mats dangling. That's Kalpana, one of the few images you have of her. And we started with a very dark space, and when you enter the space, you can smell the dry grass. And it's a dark space. The women, the people inside, the champions, they light the candles one by one. And through that process, it is a sort of initiation. Some of the images are of, the banding isn't meant to be there, but these are normal images of Pahari people, the land being acquired and appropriated. These are people entering the gallery. And within the gallery, as the candles get lit, slowly the images come out. So they were very powerful. We can have the volume down a little bit, I'll talk over it. So we had a poem, a very powerful poem, read out by a Pahari in their language. We had a Bangla version read out, we had an English version read out, and then we invited the audience to chant this along with us. So it became a very powerful, interactive piece, which was incredibly moving, and it left many people in tears. But it was also a very defiant move, because this was the first time the Paharis were actively challenging the military, which is a bit of a taboo in our country, as I suspect it might be in other places as well. So there is this component of the show, and then there is another component which is much more conventional, which shows the traditional narrative. Yes, we can have the audio up again now, please.
Rage, a throbbing boom, my stage. I curl, I tear asunder, awake. I search, I wander. I am who I am, and I will resist. I shall defy. Rukhe darabo na keno? Rukhe darabo na keno? Rukhe darabo na keno? Rukhe darabo na keno? I will resist. I will resist. I shall defy. I shall defy. I will resist. I will resist. I shall defy. I shall defy.
Audio down, yeah? I'm going to end soon after this because I'm running over time, but I want to show this work as a means of talking about how one infiltrates spaces, because as documentary photographers, our spaces are fairly limited in terms of the magazine, the newspaper, and other places. But through the Crossfire show, these works, I was able to show it at Tate Modern, I was able to show it in major museums, it was on the cover of Amnesty, Human Rights Watch, and it actually led to the killings going down. And we also produced a mobile exhibition which we gave away to people so they could take it to villages, to schools, to playing fields, and set up their own point of resistance. And the point I'm trying to make through this work is that as media professionals, as storytellers, we need to be far more fluid in our approach. And the Crossfire show, which was referred to earlier, was reviewed 3 times in the New York Times. It's perhaps the only photographic exhibition that's been reviewed thrice in a publication like the New York Times. And I think it's those spaces of intervention we need to be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Arif Mahmood.
Good evening. So, I started shooting since 1985 and started working initially editorially since 1989 for publications in the country. So, yes, if I only knew how to work this. Ajam? So what I'm going to show you is like 14 images from my span of documenting. This is probably in the 90s. This is Abdul Sattar Eidi, a humanitarian. I've spent a day with him for a magazine shoot. And he's like in a pensive mood with all his offices around the country. So I really like this portrait of his. This is also at his Destitute Children Center that's on the superhighway in Karachi. And the reason why I picked this up is because this is in 1997. The American flag there with the graphics of the wall is like a political image. I mean, when I shot it, I didn't realize it, but it has become, as time goes on, you learn from what you've shot. So I've learned to analyze images as I've grown older. And this is also 1997. This is 50 years of Pakistan at the Qaed's Mausoleum. I went there. It was a big occasion. Even National Geographic covered us. They sent photographers to Pakistan and India to cover the 50 years of both the nations. And this is also 1997, 14th August, at the shrine of the founder of the country. These images are all shot on film, black and white. Of course, there was no digital in 1997. This is the shipbreaking yard at Gadani, and this is on the Queen Elizabeth. The ship had come to be torn apart, and I spent about a couple of days photographing the area. I mean, it's a great photographic area for photographers who want to shoot. There's a lot of steel there, a lot of metal and rope and people working. So it's been fun there, and I keep shooting there even now. This is a crucifix image, which is, I like this because it's like, looks pretty, it's like realistic. It's at the Gora Qabristan in Karachi. After the monsoons, this is probably in July somewhere in the 90s. It's 95 or 96. This photograph is taken in 2005. This is the Kashmir earthquake in Jhelum Valley. They'd taken this kid out of the rubble, and he was just lying there in the fragile box. He'd lost his parents, and I was there shooting for the Dawn Media Group for their Dawn Relief NGO. And I suddenly went into a tent and I saw this boy in this box. And I took two images, one of this and the other one was with his sister who was sitting next to him. So this is like purely circumstantial, the fragility of the infant and the natural disaster. This image became pretty iconic of mine. This is in 2004. This is at the Clifton Beach in Karachi. These young boys were playing on the beach, and of course this is a toy gun, but there were Eid holidays, about 3 or 4 days holidays, and I normally like walk around the city when I'm free, and this is early mornings, about 8:30. So I was just documenting him, and then this image became pretty iconic. It was bought by this rap artist Jay-Z for his autobiography book, which he was doing. Because the guy is wearing a chain in his neck and the gun he's holding, so it pretty much sort of relates to the rap music history which he was doing. It also reflects the time Karachi was going through, if you look at it. And this is a series of images I was doing on the poster painters in Nasheman cinema. And this is also indirectly related to the violence in Karachi, which was happening in those days. And this is 2007, 2008. And this cinema poster painting is a dying art. They've finished it now because there are not many people interested in doing cinema billboards. And this particular image was shot keeping the boy in mind and, of course, the violence behind him. This is shot in the floods in Sindh, Dadu. These people can't get in because they were in a school which was full of people, and this woman was trying to make it in. She's like blocked. I'm shooting from inside the school. This is 2010. This is at Sevan. It's early morning, and it's a pretty recent image. It's 2015 15. Now these images, the four images, the last four images that I'm going to show you, range from 2012 to 2016, 17, in which I came out of the small series of books. One was called Philosophy, the other was Flamenco on the Roof, the third one was Crossroads, and the final one was Silent Rage. So this image is from Philosophy, where I shot in in a rehab house. It was called House of Hope. This is from Flamingo on the Roof. All these four books are related. It's a very personal project. It's related and linked with my mother's passing away. And this was the first fashion I did in 2006, December. She passed away in November, so I've linked it to that. And I wanted to express myself through the medium and tell a personal tale, you know. So that's why I choose to do these publications. I self-published these four books. And this is from a collage from Crossroads. This is not manipulated. These are test strips of film which have been put on a table and rephotographed. And the last image is from the press club in Karachi. This is on my last book, which was in 2017, earlier this year. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Tapu Javeri.
Assalamu alaikum. I really do believe in the pictures worth 1,000 words, so you're going to have the Tapu light. I started photography when I was 9, and at that time, luckily my father gave me a fabulous camera, and we sort of clicked, and been a photographer ever since. So my first picture, because it relates to how I started photography and how I felt when I started photography, it was all about the portrait, and it's always been about the portrait for me. So I'm going to give you a little slideshow of what I have. Madam Nurjan was kind enough to be photographed by me, and this is right before she died. I have been collecting images of people in Pakistan, people who I think are noteworthy or interesting, and keep photographing them. So this is Madam Nurjan, and I have a technique of photographing the person and then having a camera on the side which quietly takes candid pictures, and this is the candid version because she had never used MAC makeup before, so this was that. Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan, again, a private moment of his, backstage at Channel V concert. This was when Channel V came to Pakistan, and we had the chance of having international people look at our musicians. And at that time, he was backstage, and I think he told me some joke and then shied away at the same time. Iqbal Bano, I'm sort of bring you all the photographs of musicians. Iqbal Bano, who insisted on being photographed with all her jewelry, which was quite great fun to photograph. As a photographer, you have the chance of going anywhere and photographing almost anyone. You just have to know that this camera is like a ticket to the world. And for that, I went to Burma to photograph Aung San Suu Kyi. At that time, she did like Muslims. Maybe she didn't now, but at that time, I really wanted to photograph her. So I went with the contingent, got 5 minutes of her time. And at that time, wasn't happy with the official portraits. So I managed to find her ayah, who then told me, why are you unhappy? So I said, I haven't got a portrait which I like. So she said something to Aung San Suu Kyi in Burmese, and the woman turned around and started laughing, and I got my shot. So I'm going to keep on showing you a few more. For me, the portrait's always been about pushing the edge, and the edge of photography for me it's limitless. So when I was asked to, Arif and I did a book together called Do Rukh, which I thought was a fabulous concept, where two photographers would look at the same people in different visions and photograph them at the same time. So I wanted to photograph, this is a portrait of Abu Farid Ayaz, the Qawwals, and there was so much movement in the way they sing that I had to catch that movement in the camera, and I think they thought I was mad when I was shaking my camera while taking the portrait. Okay. I think I was a precocious child, or maybe 12 or 13, when I started being introduced to fashion. Somebody brought me into fashion. So for me, fashion was just a move from the portrait to be a fancy portrait. So this is Samina Pirzada. And I took her to a graveyard in Lahore and did these wonderful portraits of hers. And I think portraits can go quite wild. This is Haroon and Fakir of Awaz and Asad, and with loads of neon lights. I go on. I am an avid adventure person, so for me, photography shouldn't be above land, it can also be under land. So we had a little portrait session of Amna Haq underwater, and for that I had to create my own underwater camera. And I think the limits of photography shouldn't be just, now we have technology which can take photography to any direction. So fashion being something which really has no ethics, and I think we're going to talk about ethics ahead. So you can do whatever you would like. I wanted to do an exhibition about pushing photography and fashion, so we had good fun taking fashion into the realm of photo pictures. Then Karachi I love, and this sort of becomes my reason d'etre, because I photographed the city throughout, and at one point I decided that I have to archive my city before it changes. So this is Abdullah Shah Ghazi with a very wide lens. This is Abda Parveen singing at Mahata Palace. Am I good on time? No. Okay. Again, night shots of Karachi. The coolies at Karachi railway station. Then wide angle again of MCB building. And Sadr is where I work, and it's very accessible to me. And there's the most incredible colonial architecture around me. So I decided I'm going to do a book of nothing but that. And I went and photographed the facades, and this is what some remain, some don't. So some of them are just history. But they're the most beautiful facades in the buildings of Karachi. So I'm going to give you a little rundown. Okay. Then after doing 2 exhibitions on Karachi, I was, I had this wealth of images, and I wanted to do something with them. And I had this notion that, why can't I make a carpet out of my photographs? And then the idea of a chakra came in mind. And the chakra is all about my journey. So my journey was all about sitting in the W11 bus and going around Karachi and photographing. So at one point I decided I'm going to take all my images and try to create that. So these are rangolis or chakras of, Karachi. So you have a few of them. If you notice closely, there'll be the buildings of Karachi thrown into each other. And the Qaid Bazaar, the Teen Talwar, and then the buildings in the background. And on that note, I think I should just stop. So thank you, guys.
Insia Syed.
So before I start to show you my photos, this actually being on the panel with these 3 men right now is very, very special for me. I've grown up in Karachi, so Tappu Javeri and Arif Mahmood have always been mentors. These are 2 photographers that a lot of Pakistani photographers, and not just Karachi photographers, have kind of considered as a standard of great photography. So it's very, very special for me to be here right now. 7 years ago, I saved up enough money to be able to afford a ticket to Bangladesh so I could go to DRIC and intern there. And then something couldn't work out, and I instead ended up going to Istanbul for a photography workshop, and that's how I ended up getting into photography as a career. So again, having Shahidul Alam sitting right next to me is a very, very special moment. So I feel like that kid who has been told to present in front of a big audience, but also in front of 3 people that I've considered my teachers and my mentors. So I decided that I'm going to bring the simplest of work, ताकि ज़्यादा judge ना किया जाए. So basically, this is a series of photographs that I've shot of my grandmother, my dadi, on my phone. So all of these images have been shot on an iPhone. And the idea basically is to, 1, document my dadi as a long-term project, but also to
My dadi and my dad have a very strange relationship. They have a love-hate relationship. So through these images, I'm also trying to sort of explore their relationship through my images. So every now and then, I tell my father to write a letter to my dadi that she doesn't get to read, but I read. It's my way of having him sort of write it out and get it out of his system. I mean, these are simple images. I'm just going to flip through them. This is my dadi with her brother shot on Eid. What's also interesting is during these images, my dadi has also ended up losing her eyesight to a great extent. So this image was shot maybe like 7 months ago, and she could still read the newspaper, and now she can't. So going back through these images is also interesting for me to realize that she's aging. I basically stalk my grandmother. This is her washing the dishes, and I know I should have asked her, "Ke aap mat dhoye, let me wash them," but I took my photo first because I thought it made for a great image. This is one of my favorite images, my nephew's birthday. So we had these balloons that are kind of floating on top of her. She's really short, she's really short. So for me, this image is one of my favorites because it kind of shows the scale, like the apartment building and her. This is her definition of sunbathing. My dog isn't allowed inside the house, so sometimes he comes and plonks himself on the carpet thinking he's camouflaging himself, but we can still see him. A lot of people ask me why I photograph some of these intimate moments, but for me, I think it will end up being a great memory for me to keep. She got unwell last year. She's 88. Loves going to the park. So this is the last image, and so we gave her a VR and we put up this video, and she didn't really know what was happening because she was sitting and watching like some cinematic thing, and this is just before she kind of lost her eyesight almost completely. So now when I show her the phone, she can barely see things. The next thing that we're going to show is a video with the sound on. Just to give you a little bit of a background before we play it. This is a project which was called Not a Bug Splat. It was conducted by a group of artists from Pakistan in collaboration with a French artist, JR. It's interesting that today's topic is a picture worth 1,000 words, because once you'll see the video, you'll realize that a picture really is worth 1,000 words. I'm not going to say much because the video is pretty self-explanatory. Thank you.
Have killed more than 1,000 innocent civilians, including more than 200 children.
I no longer love blue skies. In fact, I now prefer gray skies. The drones do not fly when the skies are gray, and for a short period of time, the mental tension and fear eases.
FFR has been trying to raise awareness of this issue. Operators routinely describe their casualties as bug splats, since humans look like disposable bugs from far above. Most protests in Pakistan go unnoticed globally. So we decided to talk to the drone operators directly.
The new project laid out a giant poster of a young child with the hopes that it will be visible from the sky. The group installed the picture in an unnamed town in a rural Pakistani province close to the northwest border with Afghanistan.
The drone operator will henceforth not see what looks like a bug, but an actual face of a child staring back at them. The installation, part of French artist JR's Inside Out movement, was also designed to be captured by satellites to make it a permanent part of the landscape on mapping sites. All this happened under simple campaign hashtag.
Not a bug splat. Not a bug splat. Huge poster of a child's face.
It is not an anonymous dot on the landscape, but an actual child's face.
The campaign went viral overnight.
With earned media estimated at over $182 million, the installation put the issue on the world map.
It was brought up by members of the National Assembly of Pakistan and became the poster image for global pressure that helped reduce civilian and children deaths.
We had reached and affected our target audience.
The Not a Bug Splat project is something that could have a lot of impact, and that these children deserve a free and happy lifestyle, and we've taken it.
The girl's picture became a powerful message that said, we are humans, not bugs.
Thank you very much for all the presentations. I guess first off, you had brought it up shortly, but it's to look at actually ethics in photography. As, you know, with the digital sort of future, you have so many ways of projecting your photograph. It's either through the phone, it's either projected, it's, you know, multimedia, all these different ways. And then there's also Photoshop, the way you can change your photographs. In the different mediums that you guys work with, or the different types of messaging that each of you work with, how do you define your own ethics within your own work? And how do you ensure that what you're projecting or showing is authentic and true to the messaging? Anyone can start. Yeah.
Well, I think, you see, I'm pretty old school in this medium of photography, whether I'm shooting a film or digital. I just shoot for the body of work, or what I want to see actually, or what is in front of me, or what is shown to me circumstantially. So that seeing or that documentation is truth for me, and I don't tamper with it that much. I mean, in this age which we live in, I think people can do a lot of things with the images, but I've not gone there yet. So I mean, I'm pretty content with what I'm doing, which is like trying to show things my way, in a very simple way. It's like the camera is just a medium to record what I see. And I think this initial discipline is enough, you know, and it's quite difficult.
For me, photography is, well, it is about a way of archiving one's life. And I have been photographing for such a long time, and I've seen the change happen in my environment. So everything that I remember doesn't exist anymore. So for me, it's all about archiving that movement towards progress, if you want to call it that, or regress, if you want to call it that. But the very thought of having a snapshot from X time to Y time, that's what I feel that's what I need to do. Okay, but talking about manipulation, again, that becomes a department where, you know, if you're archiving, then do not manipulate. And if you're not archiving, you're creating fashion, then go ahead, do whatever you want.
I have a problem with the question. Because I think there is an assumption that is often made when we talk about ethics, that there is such a thing as truth. I think there are multiple truths, depending upon where you come from, what you see, how you perceive things. And for me, one is being honest when one lays one's cards on the table. Each of us carry a lot of baggage. Whatever I see, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. And both might be valid from that particular perspective. The problem comes in when one shields that association and tries to assume that there is a perfect truth that is being presented, which is unassailable. I think the way to counter it is to essentially be honest about who you are, what you are, about your track record. And we were talking about this earlier on. I think I go back into references to religion. The reason Muhammad was trusted, his words were trusted, was because he was an honest person. The same words in another person's mouth might not be. And I think we have, in the process of placing trust upon the image as opposed to placing trust on the source, moved away from where our attention should be. And we need to return to that. In a sense, we need to question constantly every image, everything, and find out how it has been sourced, who has sourced it, and what is the credibility of the source. And if that is done, you as an individual need to stand up and be able to be recognized as a credible source, and that's the only time your work is authentic.
Shahida, yes.
As well said.
Also, I mean, I think from the time that photography started to the time that we're living in right now, I think there's a lot of importance in being the source, like Shahida was saying, because we really are a lot of times in spaces where we're the only ones recording a moment. And what we can do is record it to the best of our ability, but the way the world will see it is really not in our control. So the ethic, again, is really about being true to oneself and what we're doing and putting it out for people to decide.
I definitely agree, yes. How do you basically, when you want to go about a subject and you want to record it in the best ability that you can within the environment and the way you're telling the story, how much time do you spend either in that environment with the character or the amount of research you might do beforehand? Just so, you know, as an outsider, we can understand better how you tackle the way you photograph.
I mean, I go about this, I work on long-term projects which are like self-motivated, and these things happen circumstantially, you know. I mean, I don't plan things. I mean, I'm always hunting for images. I'm a collector, and if I find the right story or the right person, then I really don't want to leave that, and it becomes really tough. I've been working with a couple of people for the last 5 years, and I don't want to really end those chapters because through this medium, you know, you learn how to live life, you learn how to communicate with people, you learn how humans are, you know, as a race, and it becomes very important for me to have an association in terms of images with that particular subject or that particular story for a long while. I don't want to work on a short-term basis. Right? I mean, I'm talking from point of view of right now in my life. So I'm just talking about what is relevant to me now. Definitely long-term, and I go about it very instinctively. I can't plan these things because everyone around the corner is important for me. You know, when I was younger, I mean, I was more romantic about certain things and doing certain types of photography or accumulating certain types of faces, but now every other face or every other person is interesting. So
normally I'm famous for doing, well, when I decide, I give myself a project and it takes however long it takes. I mean, I've been photographing the Hindu community for maybe a good 10 years, and until you feel you haven't got everything, the project is still open-ended. So there's no such thing as the timeline per se, unless you're working for somebody. But if it's a project which is of your own, then it can evolve as it goes. I mean, that's really, there's no timeline.
But for example, like the portraits that you capture, do you spend a lot of time with each person to sort of catch that perfect moment, or?
Well, it depends. If you have a celebrity portrait, then you're going to have X amount of time. But if you have, if you're photographing, like Insha's photographing her grandmother, she keep on going back to it and creating a better image, and it evolves. So, it depends on the assignment, but there's no timeline per se. You can never really capture the soul of a person in one image. It evolves like the photograph.
For me, research is incredibly important because I take photographs with a very, very specific purpose, very targeted in terms of what I want to do. So I'll give an extreme example. The work where I showed the video loop of the bark of the tree, that was a project which had to open on the 12th of June 2013 because that was the day that she had been, it was 17 years to the day Kalpana had been abducted. Once I conceptualized the work, I then started looking at how I might do it. I first went to Apollo Hospital in Dhaka, looked at the equipment they had. Then I thought I would use electron microscopy. I went to Falmouth University in the UK to look at the electron microscopes, found out it wasn't suitable. Then I went to Audenburg University in Germany to work there, and there I discovered that the actual equipment I needed was at the Brain Institute in Brisbane. So then I went to Brisbane. The difficult bit at that time was actually taking the objects to Australia, because in Australia you cannot get plant objects and things, so I smuggled them in. The actual photography I did took literally 12 hours, non-stop. I worked completely 12 hours flat out, but I spent about, 8-9 months preparing for it. So that's a bit extreme, but it can come to that as well.
Depends, again, like Tapu said, assignment to assignment. Like, I work for news agencies, so I had an assignment for Reuters where basically they wanted me to go out and photograph an acid attack victim when the bill had passed in Pakistan that acid attack, people who will throw acid will now go to jail for like 14 years instead of 7. So I remember my editor, Adris Latif, calling me and telling me that if you go online right now and Google acid attack victims from Pakistan, you will find bajillion of images. What you need to do is go out and find a story and find a caption that will make your image set apart from the rest of the images. It took me 3 days to find a girl at Indus Hospital in Karachi who was basically attacked and thrown acid on some 14 years ago. 14 years later, this girl was now enrolled in a hospital training to be a nurse. And for me, that was everything, because this girl who had been thrown acid on was now coming into a field where she will be giving back to the society, the very society that had hurt her. I went to pick her up from the hospital, and I remember her coming out. Her face was absolutely damaged. And I waved at her and I said, "Hi, Maimoona," and this was the first time that we were meeting each other. And she said, "How did you know it was me?" And I didn't know what to say, so I said, "Oh, I don't know, I guessed that it might be you," so I waved that you're the girl that I'm here to meet. And I realized that this girl had spent 14 years looking like that. So for her, that was her first face, like that was the only face that she knew. For 6 hours, I spent time with her at her house, and I just couldn't bring myself to bring up the camera because I really wanted her to just like sort of unload on me first. So for me, it felt really disrespectful that I'll just lift up my camera and take an image and leave her house. I ended up spending like the entire day at her house. And just before I left, I said, "I was here to take a picture, so if you allow me, can I please take an image of you so we can share your story with the rest of the world?" Because then it made sense, because I had heard her story. And I took 5 images, and one of those images that was the image that ended up being on Time Lightbox as one of the images of the year. And my editor called me the next day and he said, "That might have been a good photograph, but the reason why that picture ended up being so great was that it had a great caption." So sometimes you need to give in a lot more time to really be able, because at the end of the day, we go in, take a picture and leave, but these are people who spend the rest, their lives the way they are. Be it musicians, be it survivors, be it any profession. These are people who are living their lives that way. So we're kind of selfish when we go in, take a picture and leave.
No, definitely. I think that sometimes we forget that as a photographer within a situation, we can also have influence. And if we're not careful sometimes with the way we get our information, we could have an effect, for sure. I have a question from the audience. It's from a student, and he or she says, "Is it an artist's responsibility to control his or her art if it's, and the way it's interpreted and influence on the people in its society?" So do you feel that it's your responsibility as the photographer with the influence your work is giving out, if I had transformed it correctly?
I think the picture that we showed, what we did with Not a Bug Splat was exactly that. We had no influence over laying out this massive image of a girl who had lost both her parents to a drone strike. The fact that people did not even know what the term bug splat meant. These are drone operators who are looking at people that look like tiny bugs to them, they kill them, and they become bug splats. So what we did was really to sort of send out a message, but we had no control over it. It literally went on Twitter as a hashtag, and it became a campaign. So I mean, I personally don't think any photographer has any control over how his or her image would be perceived.
But do you think they should have control?
They can't.
They can't, okay.
I mean, that's what my opinion is. I don't think we have any control over it.
Yep.
I think it's a communicative medium, you know. I mean, you basically showing through this medium or representing something which is based on historical events or documentative events which are happening in your environment. So you're just informing. So I don't think there's any element of control. I don't think you really have control. For me, I think it's a more of a communicative medium. I don't think I would like to control it though.
I mean, we know that the power of photography is incredible, and the power which a photographer has in his hand is quite a bit. Again, going back to the discussion we had prior, you know, it's not just what you photograph, it's what's what you leave out and your bias and how the photograph turns out.
Is that on? Okay. I absolutely insist on control. Not because I'm a control freak, but because I think I owe it to both the image and the people I photographed. Sure, there are times when you cannot control things, but as far as I can, as much as I can, I will try and ensure that the photograph is used in the manner in which it was intended, more so in the manner in which I promised the person I photographed that it would be used. I think it's unethical of me to create a situation. I'll give you a very specific example. I've photographed people with HIV and AIDS. And way before I photographed them, I explained to them what might happen to those images. Once you photograph them, once they've gone online, once they've been distributed, I will no longer have control. And because I will not, I need to reveal that to the very people. And they need to be aware, because many people are not aware of what happens when a picture goes out, that it's irreversible. So having done so, I then ensure that the caption and everything else around it, in terms of the contractual agreements I have with people who use it, I vet that very carefully. I might not be able to control everything, but I try and do it as much as I can. And there have been times when, for instance, people have given me permission, I've photographed them, then they've changed their minds because they felt not sure. And I've never used those pictures because even changing their minds is something they have a right to do.
Taking this a bit further, do you think that with the use of social media, is it harder then to control the influence of your photographs that can have? Because it can go on so many platforms and mediums, people can take it, use it elsewhere.
About social media, and then everyone's going to ask about the Mira story. You don't, with social media, you really don't have control. So I think the only control you have is that send button. So before you take the picture and before you put it online, you think 30 times over before you really, and the stuff which goes out there, I don't know, somebody was telling me that we have taken every year Facebook and Instagram together. They upload more pictures than have ever been photographed in the history of time. So it doubles every year. It's like, I mean, when is this going to end?
You see, what you do is that, of course, like Shahid pointed out, I mean, you have the right variables, you write the right captions, and you depict a situation and you stick to what you photographed and you tell a relevant story. That's fine. That's a control which is a common factor by everybody who's shooting in the field of journalism. But once you go online, that picture can be misused and used out of context by anybody. So once you go on the net, it's very difficult to control it, although there are parameters to control that too. But you don't have total control then of that image once you're on the net.
It's true that once it goes on social media, you do not have control, but I don't think that's a good enough argument to absolve yourself of responsibility. And I think you need to do as much as you can to ensure that while that happens, you still do your bit in that process. So there are certain things you can do. One is you ensure that metadata is embedded in your images. So if an image is used out of context or in the wrong way, you can always demonstrate that this is not how it was intended. You can put up your own version of what it is in some online platform as a method of pointing to what that original source was, and you can debate it. And if it still gets used out of context, you then have a responsibility to challenge that position, to ensure that that other point of view is out there. I totally agree that out there it's a sea and you do not have full control, but that does not eliminate your responsibility as an author.
Okay, we don't have much time left, so we're just going to wrap up. But as a final sort of question, how much do you, let me see how I can phrase this, but how much do you measure your impact, or can one measure its impact? Like, for example, the video that you had created, you know, that was a big social message. How did you see, or did you find out how much it had an impact, or how much change it brought? And also with all the other works, with photojournalism, I mean, you're out there, you're trying to evoke a feeling, a message. Do you try to look further and see how much impact it has made? I guess we can start.
I think it really depends on things that you're invested in personally. Like, I do a lot of assignments which are very women related or health related. And this drone activity that we did was something that happened because a group of us got together and decided that we need to do something to send out a message. Personally speaking, I think it really depends on what frame of mind I'm in. So currently, like, I'm not doing any assignments that that might be world, like, that might change, like, the world, or that might change policies. I think right now I'm invested in documenting my family and doing stuff for myself, and that's also important as a photographer, to sort of look inwards before showing your work to the society. But I think it really depends from assignment to assignment, and especially for someone like me who's working on assignment basis. A lot of times I get asked to shoot stuff that I might not have thought about, but I'm being assigned that. So yes, I'm true to it, and I try and invest myself as much as I possibly can and research and really give it as much time to make it as honest and as impactful as it should be.
It has impact, because that picture I showed of that child in that fragile box, that ran in the newspaper for a dawn campaign, for dawn relief, and it gathered a lot of funds and helped them indirectly to build up and raise houses which were destroyed during the earthquake. And the images I showed of the flood in 2010 in Sindh, a portfolio was made out of that, and it was about 250 copies of that portfolio, having 40 photographs, were sold, and the funds collected were given to the people whose houses and whose homes were damaged during the crisis. So of course it has impact. You have to stay in there long enough to see what your images bring about. You have to be lucky enough to have an image for it to have impact,
It's really, every image has a different kind of impact. You have the Facebook likes, which is a totally different story, and I'm not going to get into them because they create more photographers or people who think they're photographers. But the power of the image, I mean, I know myself and Arif, when the floods happened in Sindh, we went out to photograph, and we came across one little child who was really, I mean, the death, the picture came out really pathetic. And we utilized that to get funds from all over the place. So it really, I mean, there is a sort of a fine line between, well, again, it comes down to ethics. There's a fine line between using that child's image to generate funds and what, the negatives of that also. So I don't think we have enough time to get into all this because it really can go beyond.
Is this working? Yeah. We shouldn't really only be considering scale, in terms of money or how many people. It can happen at a very personal level too. I photographed a young boy called Mizan, who used to work in my mother's house. He was home help, and he would clean the room we watched television in. But while we watched television, he had to sit outside the room and the veranda, and he watched through the doorway. So I photographed him watching television through the doorway. We published it in our calendar. I gave a copy to Mizan. I gave a copy to my mother. The following day, he sat inside the room with us to watch television. It was one person, a very small little thing, that made a difference to Mizan, it made a difference to my mother, and it made a difference to me. And I think we need to, that's one of those things we cannot forget, that at the end of the day, a lot of this is also something very personal, and politics can be very personal.
Thank you very much. I hope that everyone enjoyed the session. Thank you for coming out and speaking, and thank you for listening.